Hey everybody, welcome back to H4Games. I'm your host Tony, and today we're going to be taking a look at a relatively unknown piece of obscure GameCube development hardware. It is a GameCube Memory Card Emulator. Big thank you to David for lending this to us. So we're going to be testing it out, seeing what this is all about. And also a big thank you to Andrew for lending us this NPDP cartridge. This is the same one we've shown off before. It has a beta of Gun on it, but it also has memory card testing software. So it was actually the perfect combination of borrows. We're gonna be able to test these two things together, check them out, showcase them to you guys, and I hope you all enjoy. So let's get started.
They're hardcore games. Games are hard, they're hardcore games. Games are hard, they're hardcore games. Games are hard, they're hardcore games. Yeah, they're so hard, they're hardcore games. Yeah, they're
So here's a closer look at the GameCube Memory Card Emulator. One interesting note was that Kenny, the original owner, had mentioned that this was, at least at his company, referred to as the Scorpion. And you can definitely tell why with this tail. And you need this tail because of the way it fits into the GameCube and needs that extra length to allow the actual unit itself to lie on a flat surface. So what was this utilized for? Well, of course it was a memory card, but it was primarily utilized for testing. So based on the position of these dip switches, you could change the number of blocks that the GameCube would recognize that this thing had, and you could also simulate a variety of errors. Quick note, David had mentioned to me that I should be careful regarding the dip switches, not to put them in any position that wasn't pre-described within the instructions. The reason being is that he had heard rumors online that this may potentially brick your GameCube. I don't know if this is true, and I was unwilling to test it. For obvious reasons, I didn't want to brick my GameCube. So, just if you ever come across one of these, I'm not saying it will brick your GameCube, I'm just saying be careful. Listen to the instructions. Speaking of which, here are the instructions. And here we go. I'm gonna try to scroll through this quick enough so you don't get bored, but slow enough so if anyone actually wants to pause it, they can do so easily. As you can see here, based on the first two dip switches, you can alter the number of blocks, and then the latter dip switches 3 through 5, based on the pattern, you can simulate various errors. And the reverse side is just the same thing, but in Japanese. So let's go ahead and showcase the memory card software that's on the NPDP card. And I'm going to showcase this to you with just normal memory cards to start off with. So as you can see, I have a variety of options here, and it also has stats on slot A and slot B, the two memory cards I have inputted into my GDEV. Going to the first selection here, there's different formatting options, different ways to corrupt your memory cards. And before we go any further, let's go ahead and just list what's on the memory cards themselves so you can see. You can actually toggle back and forth between A and B, the two different slots. Here are my files on my slot B memory card. Some more interesting games than on slot A. Here we have some options to actually create files for testing purposes, of course. You can do one that's 1 block, 2 blocks, 8 blocks, 16 blocks, and then one that is the totality of what's available on the memory card. As you can see here, I created the file. It is number 3 here, the one above Tiger Woods. I'm gonna go ahead and do it again here. Created the file. We're gonna go ahead and take a look at what we did, and you can see an additional file on there. So here I'm gonna go ahead and delete all the files. But here's the interesting thing, is that it just deletes the files that I created within the software. It doesn't actually delete the entirety of my files. That would probably occur if I formatted, which I didn't end up doing. I try to delete again, and the same thing happens. Here's the repair option. It says repair memory card if it is repairable. And it says card not broken in slot A. Going all the way down, I reset, and it resets. So let's go ahead and plug in the memory card emulator. It pops in, and just take a second to look at the difference in size between the number of blocks on this thing compared to just your standard retail memory card. It is absolutely huge. All right, so we're gonna start off with the mount IO error. and you have to unplug the memory card emulator to adjust the dip switches, then plug it back in, otherwise you can cause issues. So I adjust the dip switches and I/O error. Well, surprise, surprise, it created an error. Exact error it said it would create. Next up, we have the program error. It says error when the program attempts to write data to the card. Here I realize you can actually, with the top option, toggle the exact number of blocks instead of a preset number of blocks. But I'm going to go ahead and create this file, and of course it gives me the message, failed to create file in slot B. Attempting it again, it gives me the same message. Next up is the wrong device error. Returns an unexpected device ID. So it just tells me the card is broken. So I pull out the card and reset the dip switches. And it tells me the card is broken. And this is the point where I start freaking out a little bit. So I reset the GDEV unit. Of course this will work, obviously. And I plug it in with the dip switches reset. And it says the card is broken. And this is the point where my heart rate starts to elevate, and I start panicking a little bit, and I get pretty worried, a little bit upset, very thirsty. So I say, hey, let's go ahead and just plug this thing into a retail GameCube, see what happens. Hopefully it works. Hopefully it's not broken. And it seems to recognize something. There we go. And it's perfectly fine. Thank God. I don't know why. It just seemed to be stuck on the idea because of that error that it was broken. But clearly, as you can see here, it functions perfectly fine. And it's not broken at all. So let's go ahead and try the erase error. Error when the program attempts to erase data. So I'm going to go ahead and pull over my Tales of Symphonia file onto this instead of deleting anything that was natively on it. And I'm going to go ahead and attempt to delete it. Now, interestingly, the device just disappears after this. The GameCube does not recognize it anymore after this error occurs. Next up is the Int Be Disabled. It disables the interrupt signal, i.e. a timeout error. So I'm going to go ahead and do a copy. And it kind of lingers, it lingers, it lingers. The data may not have been copied. And then same thing happens. It sort of like temporarily bricks the memory card emulator, and the GameCube can no longer recognize it. So last up, just for fun, let's go ahead and switch the number of megabits/blocks that this thing has. Oh my God. It says megabits, not megabytes. Could all of those years of people correcting me, saying it's not megabits, but megabytes, could they have all been wrong? Yes. Yes, they were wrong. It's megabits, bitch. Now, interestingly, it says that it wants to do a format. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if maybe I set it to a size that was below what was on it in terms of the blocks that were already being utilized. I'm not sure, but I just kind of thought it was an interesting way that the GameCube wanted to sort of deal with this change. So everybody, thank you so much for watching the episode. I know today's video was a little bit less visual, a little bit more numbers and technical and stuff, but hey, you know what? That's what development is, you know? It's not always flashy and glamorous. Sometimes it's testing memory cards. Either way, I thought it was something neat because I'd never seen it before, so I wanted to showcase it all to you guys. So again, big thank you to David, big thank you to Andrew, a big thank you to Kenny for selling off the stuff and being a good sport and explaining how he utilized it during his tenure developing for the GameCube. And hey, appreciate it, guys. Thank you for subscribing, clicking that notification button, and we'll see you all next time. Cheers.